What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, it looks like the layoffs in the gaming industry continue on now, with Microsoft announcing nearly 2,000 layoffs yesterday, and this is widespread, but certainly with Activision Blizzard at the center here, and we're gonna go over all of that here today. Also, we are gonna be talking about some incredible footage that's been found dating back to Spaceworld 2000 for Nintendo, which was a very busy time for them with the Game Boy Advance and the GameCube and a whole bunch of tech demos that we've never seen like this before. And also, we did have Horizon Forbidden West Complete Edition get its PC release date, as well as a bunch of new features. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure to hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're gonna start today with Metroid Prime 4, but not because there's news or a new trailer or anything for Metroid Prime 4. No, it's actually a certain anniversary. It's been 5 years since this video was posted. Yeah, the video announcing that Metroid Prime 4 was being rebooted for its development, and it was being handed to Retro Studios. 5 years. January 25th, 2019. It's amazing that it's been that long. If you think about it, Metroid Prime 4 was announced a few months really after the Switch came out, and it seems like it's going to release, I figure, around the time that their next system comes out this holiday. So it would have been a game that was announced at the beginning of the generation and will be there right at the end. But I do think it's going to come out on the current Switch and then also on the Switch 2, sort of as this cross-gen experience. Let Retro Studios kind of stretch their legs a bit and take advantage of the newer technology that Nintendo should have available, say, in their next generation device. But who would have thought back E3 2017, when that logo flashed up for the first time, that we'd be waiting 7 years to be able to finally get our hands on it? But technically it's not confirmed. I'm just crossing my fingers and hoping that we're finally on the road to Metroid Prime 4 coming out in the next year. Also, with all the talk around Palworld, there's also been quite a bit of discussion and focus on the Pokemon Company and their latest outing with Scarlet and Violet not living up to even the very basic and mediocre standards that they've set for themselves recently with the Pokemon series. Well, it does seem, according to sources, that they got the message to a degree and they're taking it a bit more seriously. At least we can see this posted up over on X. This is from Andy Robinson from VGC, who says, "From what I've heard, the Pokemon Company has taken the response to Scarlet and Violet seriously and is acting on it for future production," which probably means we're not going to see it in this next Pokemon game, because they're on, I guess, this 3-year schedule just about for new games for the Pokemon franchise. And development for games, it's still pretty serious stuff to get those Pokemon games out. Every couple of years without fail. So I feel like it's going to be the next generation where we see some of those changes come into effect when it comes to, we'll say, quality standards. But who knows, maybe after what happened with Scarlet and Violet, they want to hone in more on the game just working on a technical level as opposed to trying to get even more ambitious with that open world. Oh, and speaking of Palworld, we did a sales update, as they seem to do this every time it crosses a new milestone for that 1 million mark, which we can see this posted up over on their official account saying Palworld has sold over 8 million copies in less than 6 days. There's a chance by the time you're seeing this, it might even be out of date and they're at 9 million copies. That keeps happening. I figure we're safe to report it, and then, oh yeah, it's out of date immediately. But in this case, I noticed that their concurrent player count seems to be leveling off a bit and has actually fallen slightly day over day, which makes sense. People are going to play it for especially the first week or so and then kind of move on to other things as there are just more games coming out. But it still has managed to hold above 1 million concurrent players pretty much consistently across the board since it hit that mark. So it seems like it's still very popular. Go figure, with their roadmap, it seems like something they're going to be building on for quite some time, and I don't think there's any slowing down Palworld right now. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Microsoft announcing nearly 2,000 layoffs yesterday in their gaming division, which we can see this post up over on The Verge, where it seemed like the news was breaking here, as they also got a hold of a memo that Phil Spencer himself sent out to just staff across the company. But they say Microsoft was laying off 1,900 employees at Activision Blizzard and Xbox this week. While Microsoft is primarily laying off roles at Activision Blizzard, some Xbox and ZeniMax employees will also be impacted by the cuts. It is interesting to note, Phil Spencer does mention that 1,900 roles out of the 22,000 people, so trying to put that more into percentages, I'm sure, is what he's looking to do, which comes out to about 8% of the overall Microsoft gaming division. And look, I know there are big mergers that happen. A lot of times layoffs will follow because really what happened, like for example, Activision Blizzard, they publish games like Microsoft publishes games. So you bring those two divisions together and oh, look, there's two people for one position. So someone has to go. And as we know with a lot of these companies, they try to figure out how to make one person do two jobs anyway. So they're even going beyond that. But sure, with mergers and acquisitions, I understand layoffs tend to happen, but this went a bit further than just, I think, redundancies because, for example, Blizzard's president, Mike Ybarra, is leaving, and it seemed like he was all gung-ho and on board to continue on here with Microsoft and Xbox after the acquisition. But then he did announce on Twitter, I want to thank everyone who was impacted today for their meaningful contributions to their teams, to Blizzard, and to players' lives. It's an incredibly hard day, and my energy and support will be focused on all those amazing individuals impacted. This in no way a reflection on your amazing work. If there's anything I can help with, connections, recommendations, etc., DM me. To the Blizzard community, I also want to let you all know today is my last day at Blizzard. Leading Blizzard through an incredible time and being part of the team, shaping it for the future ahead was an absolute honor. Having already spent 20 plus years at Microsoft and with the acquisition of Activision Blizzard behind us, it's time for me to once again become Blizzard's biggest fan from the outside. And then on top of that, that survival game that Blizzard announced, which was apparently codenamed Odyssey, that's canceled. And it's been in development for 6 years. This, according to Bloomberg and Jason Schreier, what appeared to happen behind the scenes is just a convoluted development that went from Unreal Engine to an internal engine they had called Synapse. And then they were hoping that, with Microsoft acquiring Activision Blizzard, maybe we can go back to Unreal Engine. And they had it planned out for a 2026 release, which is like a 9-year development on that thing. Anyway, it's been canceled and seemingly the whole team's been laid off. We also have Jez Gordon mentioned multiple sources tell me that Microsoft is laying off the entire internal customer support teams for ABK games. Save a few, Microsoft will outsource the rest to external companies abroad. ABK was one of the few games publishers with a high quality internal customer support team. And then on top of that, Microsoft has also shut down departments dedicated to bringing Xbox games to physical retail, which if you've seen the digital-only Xbox console leaks, well, you can get an idea of where Microsoft is going from here. Now, he did follow up and mention that it doesn't necessarily mean that they are just quitting physical retail right now. They can outsource some of that, but I mean, come on, we all know where this industry is trending, and we certainly know the direction that Microsoft is trending, just based on what they're doing with subscriptions and pushing things towards digital with that leaked slide that showed the refresh that was adorably all digital. I just feel like they have less and less interest, or focus at least, on publishing physical games. Now, things even go a bit further than that, as you would assume the Call of Duty studios would probably be safe. No, actually, all the studios that work on Call of Duty support or just like the main lead studio have seen layoffs, whether that's Infinity Ward, Sledgehammer Games, Raven Software, Treyarch, High Moon Studios, and more. So yeah, not a great day in the gaming industry yesterday, and obviously you feel for all the people out there who lost their jobs, especially since, some of them moved around to accommodate to get one of these positions, and now they're just kind of ousted, and then, guess what? The bell rings at Microsoft today. $3 trillion market cap yesterday after announcing all of the layoffs. So I'm sure that was awesome news to see spread around the internet. But as we mentioned before, these layoffs seem to just continue to mount, with now being nearly 6,000 layoffs announced this year, and we're not even through January. So my biggest thing now looking at this is, I don't really know why more and more talent would want to come into this industry when they see how these layoffs occur and how expendable it feels like a lot of the talent is at times within these different companies. So rather than go into gaming, they might go into other tech fields in general, or if you are someone who's a veteran in gaming, you might just leave and just never come back to it. And that's, I think, the biggest thing there. One, I mean, if you don't really care about the layoffs or any developers or anything like that, you see games get canceled. Sure, you see issues with physical media when when it comes to publishing, customer service, which isn't great, obviously, if you're someone who has issues with these different games. So even just beyond, I guess, the empathy side of things, it seems like just in general, the product itself would be affected. But again, going beyond that, the talent exodus that could be happening then, it's not good for the industry at all. So I feel like 2024 will continue to be rough when it comes to layoffs. I think if people thought 2023 was bad, and it was, I feel like 2024 is actually going to be quite a bit worse. Next up, let's talk about Asus and their ROG Ally, as it's actually been a pretty good handheld next to the Steam Deck if you're looking for something more Windows-based, and something I think that works really well with emulation. But it has a higher refresh rate screen, it's technically stronger with the Z1 Extreme, and now it appears that Asus could actually be moving to release a second generation handheld this year, which seems very, very fast, but we can see this as a report over on Techlusive, and they were interviewing the Asus India vice president. They say, we most likely will launch a second generation handheld gaming console this year. We will still keep the Windows features, but we will focus more on gaming. So I do wonder if this is going to play into what Microsoft has been doing with the handheld side when it comes to Windows, as they are working to more or less conform Windows to that handheld experience where you don't have a full keyboard and mouse and you're limited to the touch screen and then just the game controls with joysticks and shoulder buttons, that sort of thing. But I don't really know what they would be doing to push like the in terms of the technology forward, as AMD is clearly working on this with all these different partners. But I feel like the things that people are more concerned with right now, if I had to take a guess, I think the performance for games, people are mostly satisfied with. It's the other aspects, like the battery life, the form factor. I mean, these are pretty big systems overall. And then the user experience with Windows, which would be something that Microsoft would probably have to work out. So I guess in Asus's mind, hey, every time we introduce a new product, we can sell it and make money on it. So why wouldn't we do one every year? But then you just have a very saturated market, and that's something that I think a lot of those retro handhelds, like the ARM-based ones, are kind of running into, because it feels like there's a new one announced every other week, and it's hard to keep up with it. I feel like Asus should more or less work to refine the ROG Ally itself and that Z1 Extreme, rather than just keep pushing towards the next Z1 Extreme and trying to make it more and more powerful with now an hour of battery life. But let me know if you think that's too soon. Maybe every year you get a new Asus ROG Ally. Is that something people want? Next up, let's talk about an incredible find that was posted up online yesterday, and this has to do with some history from Nintendo at Spaceworld 2000, which was a year where they showcased and demoed the GameCube itself, and they had a bunch of unreleased software that they showed off some of the capabilities with different tech demos that many of you may remember very fondly from very low resolution video. Well, now we have footage in 1080p 60 frames per second. Show some of that here. And this was posted up by Hard4 Games, and I will have a link to this down below in the sources if you want to go check it out for yourself. It's about 6.5 minutes long. And they mentioned it came from G-Para DVD Magazine, I believe that's volume 10. And this is really, really cool stuff. One, they at least show off the convention or the trade show itself, right? So you kind of get a feeling as to how it was set up. And look at all the tube TVs there with GameCubes hooked up. But they show off the Game Boy Advance with that cell phone, that modem connection that I feel like no one really, a lot of people I should say, don't know was a thing, but you could check your email on your Game Boy Advance, and it was mostly used in terms of games for something like, believe it or not, Pokemon Crystal? Interesting stuff there, I guess, but be able to use a modem with a Game Boy is not something I would have necessarily expected. Anyway, the GameCube being introduced there, demoed, they showed it off in full, and they had some tech demos like Meowth's Party. They had the Link and Ganon battle where they were fighting each other, and that's the thing at Spaceworld that really set us all up for, I don't say disappointment, but a bit of a swerve with Wind Waker, because you see Link there, for example, with the Master Sword and the shield, and he looks awesome. That's sort of what we thought we were going to get with the next big 3D Zelda game to take advantage of the GameCube, and they went with a more cel-shaded look. Again, I liked it, but this is the thing that really calls the division online and why there was so much fighting when Wind Waker was first shown. Was of the Mario 128, the 128 tech demo. Looks really, really, I think, impressive when you consider how many Marios are running around. They also play around with some of the geometry of the setting. All these tech demos, by the way, are at the end of this video that was posted up by Hard4 Games in high quality. So they have like off-screen footage, but then just full 1080p 60 frames per second footage, and it looks awesome. I love seeing this stuff pop up online because it just gives us a new look at stuff we've already seen technically, but not in this quality. And it's fun to have these kind of finds pop up online because it does also remind you that this stuff can be found and show up at any time. And with a lot of the upscaling techniques that we currently have, it makes this stuff even up to 4K if people are willing to go that far with it and do the processing. So really, really cool stuff here. Make sure you check it out again. It will be linked down below in the sources. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Horizon Forbidden West Complete Edition, as it is heading to PC. And now we have the official release date, which was posted up over on PlayStation Blog. You can see that here. It is coming out March 21st, and you do have like a bunch of pre-order benefits and bonuses here. You can check out different outfits and bows, that sort of thing. But people, of course, were curious about some of the features where you can take advantage of your nice, powerful video card and processor. Well, they do have an unlocked frame rate, as expected, customizable graphic settings, DLSS 3.0 with also AMD and Intel upscaling supported, ultra-wide support, get this, up to 48:9, and they even have compatibility for triple monitor setup, which, if you played Horizon, is a very pretty looking game, but it is something that has a lot of vistas that can kind of stretch out. And if you have that field of view turned up, and then you have the video card that can support it, and that ultra wide, this would be in a very impressive looking game, and one that I would recommend using if you do get a new video card at any point. This is one I would fire up and try out. In fact, I'm tempted, because I did enjoy it quite a bit on the PS5. I'm tempted to get it on my PC with my ultra-wide monitor just to see how it'll look. And then also, of course, it does support DualSense controller completely. So if you have one and you connect it up to your PC to play this, you'll be able to take advantage of the adaptive triggers and other things that play into the gameplay here. So really, really cool stuff. Again, Horizon Forbidden West, I enjoyed it a lot. And in fact, visually speaking, it was one of the more impressive, quote-unquote, next-generation looking PS5 games, even though I understand it was also on the PS4. This was one where you could actually tell the difference between the PS4 and the PS5. So if you've been looking at it, you're unsure, but you have a nice PC, this is one I would definitely recommend, and it's coming out again March 21st, so not too far out, just a couple months. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, what would you like to see the next generation Steam Deck improve on the most? So the most was performance in games. I know people obviously want their games to run better on their handheld PCs, so I was curious what the next thing would be, and that is indeed battery life, which the Steam Deck OLED is better. Like, for example, when I play Resident Evil 2 Remake on it, which it can get up to 90 frames actually in that game, which is pretty surprising to have that in a handheld setting, right? Still, the battery life, 2.5 hours maybe on that. So that I think is going to be the biggest breakthrough that we need to see with handhelds in general, is just battery technology, batteries just getting better. I feel like with a handheld PC like that, I do wonder how much it leaves the house for people, because if it's something that's mostly just around the house, 3 to 4 hours is probably what most people really need, because you're always near an outlet. But if you're someone that's going to be traveling with it, then yeah, you want as much as possible. You want like 6, 7, 8 hours of battery life. And that is something that is incredibly hard to achieve, even for Nintendo with their current Switch, where they shrunk the process, and still not there. So that's the biggest hurdle I think they have to clear, is battery life. Otherwise, though, yeah, I think these chips will just get faster and faster and faster. But if you have a new one every single year, will you really feel that jump every time to where it's substantial enough to spend another $700 or $800? I think that's going to be harder. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Nightbirds, who says, when a company blames the media for their problems, a sure sign of shadiness. Kira TV has a lengthy video on them. The stuff going on will clarify exactly why this went down like it did. So, funny thing about that with Fantastic and the day before, where they did post up that image that's kind of blaming media and stuff for jumping on the release of what was a very buggy and broken game and then them disappearing after 4 days. They took that down. They just deleted it, and I assume it's because it did get picked up by media, and of course people were just dunking all over the tweet. But the fact that they pulled it down, I'm telling you, they're going to attempt to come back with a game. I don't know if it's going to still be under the Fantastic name, but I think they're going to try to do something again. Maybe not like the day before, but just another title down the road. So yeah, the fact that they didn't necessarily want to stand by that, get out of the way of it after carefully typing it up in an image format. Again, shadiness, yeah, that's probably how I'd categorize that. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Where's the sweeping layoffs that Microsoft announced, the canceled survival game from Blizzard with Odyssey, them seemingly getting rid of their entire department for physical media publishing, just a lot of bad news, I'd say, coming out of Microsoft there. And then also, what about the Spaceworld 2000 footage with clean 1080p 60 frames per second? Do you remember when all that was going down, or are you learning about it for the first time right now? Thanks, guys, for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you back here Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time for Newswave.